Hi, and welcome to NUS NOI 2022. This workshop will be an introduction to DeFi. And what does DeFi mean? It's actually it means decentralized finance. So in this for blockchain and crypto world here, it's actually a new vertical where coins can be created and new for protocols with new systems can be created. And I would like to because for Prof Tam from NUS is having some connection issues, so I will lead this whole workshop where Ho Chi will present to you on the workshop itself. And at the very end of the workshop, we will have a quiz that you can that if you participate, you can actually get some Grab food vouchers as reward if you participate and get for good marks on that lot. And I would like to also ask the participants to actually since this will be a pre-recorded this will be a recorded workshop link. You can actually ask your friends or fellow NOI students that are not here to actually attend this workshop, and then they still can do the link to claim their Grab food vouchers. So there is a limit on the vouchers, so it will be a first come first serve basis. Yeah. So without further ado, I will let Ho Chi take over the entire presentation. Yeah, Ho Chi, thanks.
Thanks, Brian. So hi and welcome to TC Apex workshop on Introduction to DeFi. So before I begin on the workshop, I have to make a disclaimer that this is not financial advice and that you should do your own research before making any financial decisions. So everything here is purely for information purposes, and you should not take it as financial advice, although some of it might sound as such. especially now since the crypto market is quite volatile. It's quite risky to make any financial decisions now. Yeah. So for today, we'll be going through these 4 components. Firstly, token standards, which are basically a set of rules which allow the development of cryptocurrency tokens on different platforms. What is DeFi and their users? Components of DeFi and how they are organized, as well as the risks in DeFi. So first of all, token standards. So what are token standards? Token standards define the functionality and wallet compatibility of a digital token and facilitates the tokenization of applications in a blockchain. So each blockchain has its own token standards. And in Tezos, we have the FA 1.2 as well as the FA2 tokens. So they are both like kind of fungible tokens which serve different purposes. FA 1.2 tokens are more like the general fungible tokens you see when you look at the crypto market, while FA2 tokens, you can use them to work with other stuff like non-fungible tokens as well. In Ethereum, there's the ERC20 tokens and the ERC721 tokens, which are more well known as ERC20 refers to the fungible tokens and the ERC721 refers to the non-fungible tokens. So they are more well split. So as I mentioned earlier, the tokens are generally split into fungible and non-fungible tokens. And so fungible tokens are the most basic token type, and they are a class of identical interchangeable tokens. So they are usually what most people think of when they think of cryptocurrency. So basically, when we talk about these kind of tokens, each token is represents the exact same amount as each other token. So two Tezos tokens are identical and interchangeable and represents the same amount of money, just like a US dollar. $1 is exactly the same as another US dollar. On the other hand, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, are unique digital items with blockchain managed ownership. So these items are not able to replace or be replaced by another identical item. So for example, these are CryptoPunk NFTs. So each one of them is different from every other one. So although they are all under the same class, they cost differently and they have the different characteristics. So one NFT, for example, this one can have a different value than another one based on the characteristics, how much people value it, who has owned it before, and many other factors. So here is a comparison of like Tesla's FA 1.2, FA2 tokens, as well as the Ethereum ERC20 tokens. So on here, the first row shows like the methods in smart contract, which I'll explain more later on. The token type, single token, multi-token, single token, as well as the nodes, which I mentioned earlier. FA 1.2 and ERC20 can only support fungible tokens, while FA2 supports a wide range of token types and implementations. So next, what is DeFi? So DeFi stands for Decentralized Finance, and it represents a movement that seeks to push borderless, censorship-free, and accessible financial products for all. Basically, you can use financial services such as borrowing and lending without the need to rely on centralized entities. So in this image, we see like the ideal vision of what decentralized finance should be. So there is to be decentralization. It should be trustless, should be transparent, censorship resistant, programmable, and permissionless. Yeah. And okay, so sometimes people get quite confused between like what's the difference between traditional finance, fintech, and DeFi. So I'll first talk about like traditional and DeFi. So because they are more similar, they are both traditional finance and decentralized finance are both methods of finance that allows people to engage in financial transactions such as buying of financial products and services and using financial services in the form of like lending, borrowing, exchanging assets, and investing. So in traditional finance, the banks and other institutions have a large amount of control over money, the financial products and the services, meaning that if you want to do anything, you would have to go through the banks, go through the exchanges, go through yep. And these institutions, since they are for-profit organizations, they would charge fees for each transaction you do. And over time, like once when you keep doing these transactions, you will have to pay a lot of money in terms of fees. On the other hand, for DeFi, the intermediaries, instead of being like banks or institutions like exchanges, it will come in the form of smart contracts, which I'll talk about later on. So the smart contracts are basically programs that execute when the conditions for them are fulfilled. So the main point of having this is that there's no one institution that holds power over the finance of the people, and the rules that are set in place in the program will be followed. So there will be no like human intervention or bias due to human intervention or whatever. On the other hand, for fintech, it's kind of separate from traditional and DeFi, in the way that it just functions as a bridge in the form of programs and other technology to enable banking and financial services from like banks to consumers, so that they can access these kind of financial services and banking more conveniently. Yep. So that's the difference between the three. Hopefully that makes sense. One plus point for decentralized finance is that it provides opportunities for the unbanked. So this is some statistics we gathered online. So like if we look at this map, there's a lot of areas without access to banks and bank accounts, and the total number adds up to around 1.7 billion. Most of these come from like poor households, and some of their main reasons for not having a bank account is due to like poverty, geographical and trust issues. And for these people who are unbanked, the access to banking financial services is very difficult. But DeFi has the potential to make it easier. So if you want to access financial services in using decentralized finance, you have to install these decentralized apps, DApps, and it only requires a person to have a mobile phone and internet access, as opposed to having like lengthy verification processes and administrative processes you have to follow through. So these DApps can be the gateway to accessing financial products for these people. In short, DeFi opens up huge windows of opportunities and allows users to have access to various financial instruments without the restriction of race, religion, age, nationality, or geography. So obviously there's some problems, like people will have to be educated on like DeFi, at least the foundation of DeFi, how to use it, how to get the benefits of DeFi, and also the problem of whether they are willing to take up these kinds of less familiar technology. But in any case, I think, in my opinion, this would be easier to accomplish than to get the banks or other financial institutions to set up shop in these kind of rural areas, because they'll probably make a huge loss since there's not enough people, and there are not enough people. There are not making enough money to allow the banks to make profit from them. So now to smart contracts, which I've made a lot of references to earlier. So a huge part of DeFi relies on smart contracts to function, and actually, we could say that DeFi would not work at all without smart contracts. So this is quite important to know for people who are gonna go into crypto or decentralized finance. So smart contracts are self-executing contracts with the terms of the agreement between the buyer and seller being directly written into the lines of code. So the code and the agreements contained exist across a distributed decentralized blockchain network. The code controls the execution, and the transactions are trackable and irreversible. So what the first line means is that when I make for example, when I make a transaction request, the smart contract handles it. And for example, the condition for the smart contract to execute is that I have to transfer some funds to person A, and person B also has to transfer some funds to person A. So only when me and person B fulfills the conditions will the smart contract execute and complete the transaction to person A for us. That's just an example. So, and the second part of the statement means that the data regarding the smart contract execution is publicly stored, and hopefully without exposing any private info, if based on the configuration of the smart contract. So if we actually try to look for we look in Blockchain Explorer for smart contract transactions, we can see that all the information is publicly available. So this is the hash for the smart contract, where you can see the things like code, the class, the functions it has, what it processes, and so on and so forth. And you can see who the sender is and who the recipients are. So you can go here. I think this is very easily accessible if you just search Blockchain Explorer. So this is for the Bitcoin blockchain, and there's a lot of information on here which you can look at it on your own if you want to. So that's what it means by the transactions are trackable. And for irreversible, since it's on a blockchain, it'll be if you've attended the workshop, the first workshop, Introduction on Blockchain, you would know that once you put stuff on the blockchain, it will stay there permanently, semi-permanently, because it's very difficult to make changes on the blockchain. And each transaction that has been completed cannot be undone. So next, we'll be looking at each individual component, some individual components of decentralized finance. This image shows the levels of organization of DeFi, with smart contracts as the foundation. So they're the foundation of where everything above it is built on. Then tokens, there's other stuff like tokens, wrap assets, stable coins, insurance, cross-chain swaps, and decentralized exchanges, which we'll talk about later on as well. First we'll talk about decentralized exchanges, or DEXs. And there are generally two different ways of how DEXs work. So this method, which I'm showing here, is called like something like a order book model, which is used in traditional finance. But this is kind of very inefficient because the model relies heavily on market makers, and the prices are constantly adjusted have to be constantly adjusted to meet the market. And the supply and demand constantly evolve in an exchange, making the mid-market price move. And when that happens, the market makers will have to cancel their offers and create new orders at the new mid-market price. So because of this, there's a large number of orders and order cancellations being sent to the exchange. So this creates a lot of like transactions for this, and it's generally very inefficient, and a lot of like blockchains won't be able to support that many transactions at like per second, for example. Okay, so the next way is using liquidity pools and automated market makers. So actually this way of this way of DEX is the current standard for like many DEXs in Tezos. So in essence, a liquidity pool would hold two tokens. For example, in here, XTZ with USDTZ is a pool holding both XTZ tokens and USDTZ tokens, where traders swap like XTZ for USDTZ. So it's like one token for the other. And each pool would represents additional pairs that can be traded. For example, like TZBTC to XTZ or Rep XTZ, WXTZ to USDTZ, etc. So the liquidity pools reserves are provided by the liquidity providers who are incentivized to obtain a proportionate fee of the DEX transaction fee. So whenever there's like transaction occurring, there'll be a fee collected, which will go to these people who provide the liquidity. So this fee is charged for every token swap on the DEX. And the price of the assets in the pool are algorithmically determined using the automated market maker algorithm. And these AMMs work by maintaining a constant product based on the amount of liquidity in both sides of the pool. So what's the point of these DEXs? So the main point of the DEXs are so that people can trade and directly swap tokens without the need to use a centralized exchange. So when you use a centralized exchange, you will need to deposit the tokens to an exchange, place an order on the order book, and then withdraw the swap tokens. But with the decentralized exchange, you can simply swap your tokens directly from the wallet without having to go through like the steps, like to go to deposit tokens in an exchange, place an order, and then withdraw. So all you need to do is to send your tokens from your wallet to one of the smart contract addresses, and then you will receive your desired token in return in your wallet. So it's very, very convenient. It's more convenient than the alternative, and there's no order book, and the token exchange rate is determined algorithmically. Also, all this is achieved with the liquidity pools and the automated market maker mechanism. So next, we'll be talking about DEX farms, which are also known as yield farms. So DEX farms are places where users can lend, borrow, or stake tokens or coins to earn interest in return for their services. And so these farms are facilitated by smart contracts. And okay, if we look at the image here, there's a lot of information, like whatever. And so API refers to like annual percentage yield, and you can see like on a lot of these, the annual percentage yield is all very high, like 204%, 799%, 850%, which is a lot. So if you put a certain amount, you'll get this percentage return in a year. But obviously, like you can't expect it to always happen. So this is the projected annual percentage yield, but there's quite a lot of risk here. So you could risk losing some money. and the returns based on this can be very inconsistent as well. So that's why the projected APY can be that high. Yeah, and all this is facilitated by smart contracts. Okay, DEX staking. So staking refers to the commitment of your assets to support a blockchain network and confirm transactions, and is available with cryptocurrencies that use the proof of stake model to process payments. So when you stake, right, you will be basically locking your funds temporarily to maintain the operations of a proof of stake system where you will get a reward in the end for doing this. However, for staking, it's only available for blockchains with the proof of stake model as a consensus mechanism, such as like Tezos and some others. So this is a good way to use crypto to generate passive income. So the more popular blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum are currently using the proof of work algorithm, but actually Ethereum is gonna migrate to the proof of stake model. So in the future, we could expect this to be available for Ethereum as well. Okay, stablecoins. So what's the use of stablecoins? And what are stablecoins in general? So the prices of these cryptocurrencies, when we talk about them, is actually very volatile. And for one single cryptocurrency, within the same day itself, you can see the price change, like increase by 10%, decrease by 10%, and all that kind of things. So to like mitigate this volatility, right, in terms of the huge jumps or drops in prices, there's this concept called stable coins, which are pegged to other stable assets such as USD dollars, that were created for this reason. So for example, Tether USDT was one of the first centralized stablecoins to be introduced, and each USDT is supposedly backed by $1 in the issuer's bank account. But however, one major downside to this is that you as a user, when you buy these stablecoins, there'll need to be some kind of trust that the USD reserves are fully collateralized. That means they exist, they are backed by something else, and they actually exist. Yeah. So there's actually there have actually been cases where like stable coins have failed, although it's supposed to be stable, like the recent Luna and UST situation, where there was a huge crash, lots of money got wiped out from the market. People thought that stable coins, like, it will maintain its price at one US dollar, but it dropped to something very, very low, and this caused a huge crash, and a lot of money got wiped out from the market. So yeah, that's like a problem with that stablecoin, the centralized stablecoin. And so that's another form of stablecoin which aim to solve this trust issue. So these decentralized stablecoins are created in a decentralized manner via an over-collateralization method. They operate fully on decentralized ledgers and are governed by decentralized autonomous organizations. And its reserves can be publicly audited by anyone. Yeah. So while stablecoins are not really a financial application themselves, they are important in making DeFi applications more accessible to everyone by having a stable store of value. Yep. So this here is actually just referring to USDTZ, but it's generally available. It's generally applicable to others as well, like other stablecoins as well. So you can obtain your stablecoins by exchanging, like through exchanges. So you swap your tokens for stablecoins or your stablecoins for other stablecoins. And the second way you can get stablecoins is through mint trees. So you buy stablecoins with US dollars or some other currency, as well as you can mint these stablecoins yourself as well. However, actually, if you want to mint the stablecoins, right, it will require like you have to enroll as an individual minter. You have to go through some kind of registration process, and then you have to figure out how to do it yourself. So, I don't think that this is a way that most people would do it. So they would generally just buy it or exchange their tokens for these stablecoins. Other than these, there's like other ways you can get stablecoins by maybe you join some project, you work on it, and you'll earn stablecoins by working on the project, or you could just borrow stablecoins as well, which is technically not getting stablecoins for yourself, but just borrowing them, I guess. And next, we'll move on to wrapped assets. So, not sure, but I think wrapped assets are quite you would have probably heard of wrapped assets quite a lot. So wrapped assets are, or wrapped tokens are cryptocurrency tokens pegged to the value of another crypto. So it's called a wrapped token because the original asset is like put into some sort of a wrapper that allows the wrapped version to be created on another blockchain. But why do we need this? So a reason why this could be useful is because like different blockchains offer different functionalities. So like there's some things you can only do on one blockchain but not the other, but you only have currency on the other blockchain. So you want to do stuff on this blockchain, you want to do stuff on a separate blockchain, and you have to transfer your tokens over. So the two blockchains don't know what's happening on the other side, but with wrapped tokens, you can create a bridge between like different blockchains and do stuff on there. Yeah. So wrapped tokens typically require a custodian, which is an entity that holds an equivalent amount of the asset as a wrapped amount. So this custodian can be a merchant, a multi-signature wallet, DAO, or even a smart contract. So in wrapped Bitcoin, the custodian needs to hold one Bitcoin for each one wrapped Bitcoin that's minted. So there is like this kind of reserve to back the wrapped asset up. And this the proof of this reserve will be existing on the chain itself. Yeah, so that's it for wrapped assets. So on to lending and borrowing. You can lend and borrow as well in decentralized finance, and in normal finance as well. In traditional finance as well, you can lend and borrow money. So generally, lending and borrowing are essential services in any financial system, be it like traditional finance, centralized finance, decentralized finance, or whatever. And in traditional finance, the lenders would be like people like banks that provide you with a loan in exchange for a fee. The fee would be in the form of an interest rate, and if to repay the loan, the loan is enforced by legal contracts in the bank. So the bank will enforce the returning of the loan, but as the person who borrowed the money, if you don't have the money, if you use all the money and then you can't return it, I don't think they can do anything about it either. Like you can be bankrupted, but they can't just craft the money out of thin air and take it back or something. But when we talk about DeFi lending and borrowing, the lenders and borrowers are in the forms of like anyone can be a lender and borrower. So it's completely decentralized, permissionless, and the people will maintain full custody over their coins. So like, so when you try to borrow the crypto, right, you will have to put some collateral behind. So for example, one condition that could be happening is that your collateral has to be like more than or equal to 133% of the borrowed funds, so like 1 1/3 of the borrowed funds. And as long as you have this collateral with you, there will be no limits to how long you can keep the funds for. But then once the value of the collateral you have falls below the amount, like the 133%, electronically your collateral will be liquidated to repay the borrowed amount. So yeah, so the people who want to lend their money to earn interest will supply their tokens to a particular money market and start receiving interest on their tokens based on the current supply APY, the annual percentage yield. So as I mentioned earlier, each loan will have to be collateralized, and generally blockchain loans are over collateralized. That means if you borrow like $1, you have to collateralize it with $1 something at least. So with the rates I mentioned earlier, 133% for every dollar you borrow. So if you borrow 1 million, you need to provide 1.3 million as collateral. If not, you won't be able to borrow anything. But in this case, like if you have to provide more than you are able to, you are borrowing less than what you have. So why would you need to take a loan? So that's one question that you might ask. So there are multiple reasons for this. So like the first would be they would not want to use their original tokens. They don't want to sell their original tokens. And the second is they don't want to pay capital gain taxes on their tokens, or they would like to use their funds to increase their leverage in a position, so like margin trading like that. And these are all valid reasons, and people who actually know how to use like loans similar to traditional finance, they'll be able to make a lot of money with it. With a certain amount of capital, they can easily double or triple their capital. Yeah. Okay. So another thing that might seem weird at first, but will make a little more sense later on when we talk about other stuff, is flash loans. So how flash loans work is that you have to borrow and repay the loan within the same blockchain transaction. So it might not make sense because like you're borrowing and then you're returning it like immediately after you borrow. But so if we look at a case study like for this one, there's a thing called like crypto arbitrage, where you can make use of the fact that different exchanges have different exchange rates at a certain point of time. So people who are like, they spend all their time on this, they'll be able to make use of this and the flash loan to make profits. So for example, you can take a flash loan of 100,000, you swap your money for another type of token. You take that token and you go to another exchange with a more favorable exchange rate, and you swap the token back to the original token, and then you return the flash loan. And this way you'll be able to earn like a bit of money here and there. Yeah. So people who are able to make use of this and flash loans are able to turn a profit from basically nothing, and this is actually completely legal in this sense, because like it kind of, from what I know, it kind of encourages like the market efficiency, because it will encourage these exchanges to, it will push the market in a way such that the exchanges will push the exchange rate back to the original, such that all of the exchange rates are kind of the same, so that people can't abuse this this method. Yeah. So next, we'll be looking at collateral swaps. So flash loans can be used for collateral swaps as well. And so collateral is basically the collateral, as in the collateral you have to provide when you do something like take a loan, as mentioned earlier. So basically what this means is that you can swap the collateral. For example, you put Bitcoin as collateral, but you want to use that Bitcoin for some other reason, and you have like say that Ethereum or Tezos as a reserve, and you want to use that as collateral instead. So you swap your collateral from Bitcoin to the Tezos, and then here you can take a flash loan, repay your loan, withdraw the Tezos, swap your Tezos for the TZBTC, and all these steps, which I won't really go into depth. But then with a small fee, you'll be able to swap your collateral from one token to another. But actually, in my opinion, I'm not really sure whether this is very useful, unless it's in some niche situations where you need to, like at this point of time, you have to use a certain token to accomplish something that you want. Yeah. Next, synthetics. So synthetics are basically contracts where two parties bet on opposite outcomes for the value of an asset, and then split the differences in profit and loss. So the actual asset is not purchased, and both parties just bet on the value appreciating or depreciating. So you can actually just think of this like something like options in traditional finance, where you buy a call or put based on what you think the price will be in a future time. Yeah. So this is an example for synthetics. So basically here Alice will bet Alice and Bob both send like $100 to a contract, making the total value of the contract $200, and Alice will bet that the price will rise, while bot will bet that the price will go down. And they agree for an expiry date for this bet. So this is the start and this is the end. And this is the time frame where the bet will occur. And once the time reaches the exit, based on the direction of the price relative to the start, either bot or Alice will get more money than the other. So no Bitcoin is actually bought. They are just betting on like the direction of price change. So yeah, that's basically the concept of synthetics. And I'm not sure, but apparently this might get confused with wrapped assets, but it's not actually the same, because a wrapped asset, when you buy a wrapped asset, you actually buy something that represents the actual asset and can be exchanged one-to-one with the asset. But for synthetics, you can't change like the contract with the actual asset. So you can't like buy 1 Bitcoin worth of this bet and exchange it for 1 Bitcoin. Like, yeah, so this is just a bet, and it's kind of like gambling, so probably not good thing to try. Next would be margin trading. So in margin trading, you are basically increasing your buying power by taking borrowed money to purchase crypto assets. So if you are lucky, you'll earn a lot more than you can with your base capital. But this is super risky because there's this thing called there's your gains and your losses will be multiplied as well because of this thing called margin calls. So for margin calls, if the price if the price goes below a certain amount, everything will be liquidated and to return the loan borrowed. But so a problem that can occur with this is that if the price of the asset goes slightly below the margin and suddenly shoots up to the moon, you will still lose all your money because of the margin call that will automatically cut your asset and then liquidate it, sell everything, and to return the loan. So this, in my opinion, this is there's a lot more risk than reward, but it's still high risk, high reward. There's a chance that you can, if you know what you're doing, if you are very confident in what you're doing, you can still earn a lot of money from margin trading. And actually, this is also available in traditional finance as well, not just with DeFi. Yeah. So DeFi insurance, it works like regular insurance, but instead it protects users against like attacks and hacks on the smart contracts and accounts as well as like smart contract failures. So for DeFi insurance, the main difference is that anyone can act as an insurance provider, allowing them to like turn a profit. Yeah. So, but however, if you act as an insurance provider, right, you are bearing the risk of any major events occurring, where you can lose the money as a payout for the insurance for the people who bought the insurance. Yeah. Okay, cross-chain swaps. But since I'll just talk about the scenario first. So if you want to sell Tezos for Bitcoin, there are a few ways you can do it. First, by using a centralized exchange and a decentralized exchange. So here, you are basically using a centralized exchange to do a swap. So so Bob gives BTC to the centralized exchange to get back XTZ, and Alice just gives XTZ to the centralized exchange to receive BTC. So the swap is managed by the centralized exchange, and there's like the centralized exchange takes handles all the exchange rates and the swapping involved. On the other hand, this is a decentralized exchange using web tokens to help to do the exchange. And the third way you can do exchange is by using cross-chain swaps. So it refers to the exchanging of two different cryptocurrencies on two different blockchains in a peer-to-peer fashion without using a third party, using these things called like hash time lock contracts, which are codable into blockchain transactions. So it looks something like this. There's the important thing is that there's no third party involved. It's just these contracts that deal with like the transfer of Bitcoin to the contracts and then to the other person, and transfer of the Teslas to the contract and then to the other person. Yes, so there's no third party, there's no intermediary involved. Okay, next we'll be talking about risk in DeFi. So this is the last section. I think we can take a short break for a while here, and I guess in around 5 minutes I'll come back. So you can take a break now. We'll resume at 2:07. Okay. Hi, I'm back. um, so actually, if you have any questions you would like to ask or um, anything you would like to clarify, you can just type in the chat and we'll try to answer you as best as we can. Um, now I'm with at any time during the workshop or after the presentation as well is fine. Um, since I know that this is all this is quite a lot to take in and it's kind of hard to understand. So it would be great if you could ask some questions to get your doubts clarified as well. Yeah. So the next section for us would be on the risks in DeFi. And so there are uh, many risks you would have to take if you would like to do anything related to DeFi. But in general, these are the few main risks that are involved in DeFi. So the first is rug pull. I'm quite sure this is kind of familiar. There's a lot of memes on them. Flash loan exploits, impermanent loss, smart contract bugs which can be exploited by others, admin keys, and systemic risks. So the first would be rug pulls. Uh, and So, rug pull is a malicious act in which, like, crypto developers abandon a project and either run away with project funds or sell off their pre-mined holdings. And rug pulls are most common within the DeFi ecosystem as DEXs allow malicious developers to list their tokens without any prior verification or auditing. And so this is how it will work. So, say a developer creates a token with no real use case, typically just by copying and pasting the code of another token or template, and then changing a few lines. Then he adds the liquidity of the token to a DEX such as Uniswap and begins trying to build up hype, increasing like people awareness of this token on like social media, Telegram groups, Discord groups, whatever. Often by like paying influencers to shill for them, and then after that, as the price of the token rises, there'll be promises made, FOMO, and all these kind of things where users will try to add tokens, buy more tokens, do all this kind of stuff to add value to the liquidity pool, and just buy tokens, and then the price will go up even further, as like you can see here. And then once these developers are satisfied with the earnings, they'll drain all the liquidity from the platform and exit with the valuable tokens. And then any investors who did not exit earlier will be holding like worthless tokens. So like the drops can go from like 90% to like almost 100%. Like the tokens completely lose their value, and so basically you lose all your money if you've invested into this project. Yeah. So this is, I think, is a very common problem in the DeFi world, where developers make use of the fact that people don't really know what's going on. They just FOMO in and buy all these tokens, and then they just lose all their money, so that the developers can make a quick buck. So basically, they are scamming. Um, and I think like there should be regulations for this so that people can't just uh, do these kind of things. But I'm not sure whether there's anything. There definitely is some stuff being done, but as long as the people can still execute this kind of stuff, I don't think enough is being done. So the next one is a flash loan exploit, which involves like artificially modifying the relative value of a trading pair by flooding the contract with one of the tokens used in the loan. So when you flood the contract with one of the tokens used in the loan, the demand for the borrowed token would increase by a lot, and then the price would increase very sharply. And then the attackers will get the token would have gotten the token at a cheaper rate compared to now, and is able to sell it for a higher price, which drains the value from the contract by forcing a handover of the tokens. So additionally, this conversion process can be used to like launder the attacker's gains and reduce the probability that they'll be locked into their accounts by various exchanges. Yeah. So remember that a flash loan is the one where you immediately borrow and then return in the same transaction. So this is a flash loan exploit. And the next one is impermanent loss. So impermanent loss happens when you provide liquidity to a liquidity pool, and the price of your deposited assets changes compared to when you deposited them. So the bigger this changes, the more you are exposed to impermanent loss. And to put it simply, the impermanent loss is the difference between holding tokens in an AMM or automated maker machine, the AMM, and holding them in your wallet. And it occurs when the price of tokens inside an AMM diverge in any direction. And the more divergence there is, the greater the impermanent loss. So why do they call it impermanent? This is because as long as the relative prices of the tokens in the AMM returns to their original state when you entered the AMM, the loss disappears and you earn 100% of the trading fees. So the loss, where this is derived from, you will earn back 100% of the trading fees. So there is technically no loss. But this is rarely the case because more often than not, impermanent loss would become permanent, and this will eat into your trade income by leaving you with negative returns. So this is still on AMMs, and in their raw form, AMMs are kind of disconnected from external markets, and if token prices change on external markets, and AMM does not automatically readjust its prices back to normal, and it requires someone to come along and buy the underpriced asset or sell the overpriced asset until the prices offered by the AMM match external markets. So during this process, the profit extracted by that person is basically removed from the pockets of the liquidity providers, and this results in impermanent loss. And so no matter which direction the price changes, right, there will still be impermanent loss. So like even if the price rises, there will be impermanent loss. The price goes down, there will be impermanent loss as well. And that's what impermanent loss is. Okay, so bugs. So because these smart contracts are developed by humans as well, so there tends to be like these kind of bugs here and there. So when hackers or people who when these hackers snoop around and find these bugs that exist in the smart contracts, they'll be able to exploit these smart contracts and steal some valuable assets. So this one is a hack on the Poly network, which led to a few hundred million being hacked. When I read it, it wasn't 611, but a few hundred million was being hacked. And for this Poly network hack, apparently the bug bounty for this was 500,000 USD, and the guy who managed to hack the network eventually returned all the money, and he was kind of invited to work for them, basically. So if you are able to find these kind of bugs and report them, it's a good way to earn money, I guess. Next, systemic risks. So systemic risks are basically like something not under anyone's control. It's not like rug pulls where someone has to intentionally cause a crash. It's basically some unfortunate event happening where which could lead to like instability in the project, and then this could cause the company or project to like completely collapse. So like it's not caused by anyone. It's not intentionally caused by anyone, like especially not the developers. But these kind of things just happen, and so if you look at here, the price dropped from like 60 something to less than 1 cent, less than 1/10 of a cent, 100th of a cent, and everyone who was involved in this project would just basically lose all their money. And this is a risk that is involved, that is present in DeFi. Yeah. All right. So I think that's kind of the end of the presentation, and so this is kind of like a summary of what we've talked so far. Not say a summary, but just what DeFi is. So decentralized finance is an umbrella to financial instruments on a peer-to-peer public blockchain network. And with DeFi, you can do most of the things that banks support, which are here. So the difference is that DeFi is decentralized and is faster. And the main point is that the decentralized finance services are global. You don't have to have like banks set up or institutions, brick and mortar shops, whatever. They're peer to peer. They're pseudonymous, which kind of means like partially anonymous, and it's open to everyone. So anyone can just get involved uh, and basically make use of DeFi for themselves. And okay, so that's the end of the presentation. And as Brian mentioned earlier, there will be a quiz. So this is the QR code for the quiz. I think we'll send the link in the comments as well, so that it's easier for you all to access it. But for those who can, you just scan the QR code first and try to complete the quiz. So there'll be, I think, GrabFood vouchers if you get the quiz all correct or something. So yeah, just try to do the quiz and fill up the feedback at the end. Thank you. If you're interested, actually, while doing the quiz, you can if you're interested more to know more about like the risk and whatever happened during the like if any news that's happening regarding hacks and all that, you can go to this website, rec.news, where you can see like all the past hacks, problems, and these kind of stuff with any blockchain network. So this was the Luna one earlier, which I've mentioned earlier, where the blockchain just crashed and the Luna and UST crashed. Yeah, so that's actually it for me. I'll leave the QR code here for a while longer, and hope you enjoyed and learned some stuff from this. And hopefully you could understand what I was saying so far. Thank you.